Welcome back to College Hill Farm. Well, today I would like to talk about prepping. Now, as a homesteader and a prepper, I consider prepping what we would call living an Appalachian lifestyle. That means you raise a big garden, you try and live as sustainable a life as possible. Self-sustainability is a myth, and it's impossible, okay? There is no such thing as self-sustainability. Get that out of your head right now. It's just not a thing. So we try our best to have food put up at least 6 months worth. Generally, we've got a year's worth of food in our pantry and freezer at any one time, generally a year and a half at the end of the harvest season, and by the beginning of the next season, we've probably got half a year's left, okay? So, prepping is not what they show you on the TV. All these doomsday preppers and preparing for a hurricane, or preparing for the end of society, or preparing for the volcano in Montana to blow up, or, okay, that's all stuff dramatized for TV. A prepper is a common sense person who knows that they have to have at least 4 weeks worth of food, a month's worth of food, because what could happen? You could have a sickness and miss work for a month, and you need to have enough cash on hand to carry you through. There could be a power outage that lasted for an extended period of time. A good example is back in, I think it was 2009, there was a power outage in southeast Kentucky that lasted for 3 weeks. Okay? It was 3 weeks long. So you had to have a heat source that you could depend on for 3 weeks. Plus you had to depend on, and it was an ice storm that caused it, so you had to depend on yourself because wasn't nobody getting to you. Okay? Power lines were down everywhere. Phone lines were out. Everything was down. Okay? And in Appalachia, back then, cell phone signal was almost non-existent. So today it's a lot better. If the power goes out here, we normally get 1 or 2 bars on cell service, okay? If certain places in my house, I have no cell signal. Certain places on my property, I have no cell signal. So we have a landline because that's what rural people do when there's not sufficient cell service to cover where you're at. So there are things that preppers do, and prepping is not, it's more of a Boy Scout kind of thing. Okay, the Boy Scout motto, be prepared. That's what it is. You're prepared for if you lose your job. You're prepared for if the power goes off. You're prepared for if food prices go through the roof. You've got a store of food in order to get you through till something happens and the prices can come down. During the pandemic, here's a good example. During the pandemic, somebody went around here in central Kentucky and bought every mask and every bottle of alcohol here. Bought it all. You could not buy a bottle of alcohol. You couldn't hardly find any cold medicine, cough drops. They bought it all in thinking that they were going to store it and then sell it little at a time. Okay? Capitalism at work. That's the way capitalism works. It was capitalism at work, but it was hoarderism. So what we're going to talk about today is at what point does prepping become frivolous? Okay? And at what point does prepping actually harm you? There's a point that prepping can actually harm your physical and mental well-being. So let's talk about that and see when prepping becomes frivolous. Okay, when does prepping become frivolous? Well, prepping becomes frivolous when we look at the amount of time, the resources spent, and the amount of energy put into creating the preps needed to survive certain scenarios that are excessive. Okay? For example, just one example is prepping with enough food to last for 3 weeks is definitely not frivolous. Prepping for enough food to last for a year is definitely not frivolous, unless you're buying food that you just won't eat. Okay? And we'll get to that here in a minute. So if you're expending more energy than the chance of having an event happen, then that becomes frivolous. Let's talk about the different ways that it can become frivolous when it comes to time, energy, and resources. Okay, one of the first things that people prepare for, that they spend a whole lot of resources and a whole lot of time, is an asteroid impact. Now, a major asteroid impact occurs about every million years. An extinction level event has occurred with asteroids on this planet somewhere in the neighborhood of every 250 million years. So, preparing for an asteroid impact is a whole lot less likely, infinitesimally less likely, than you're going to lose a job, or you're going to have a house fire, or you're going to, okay, does that make sense? Prepping for that is a whole lot more frivolous. You spend a lot of energy and time, and look, let's say a nuclear exchange. A nuclear exchange between major nuclear powers, even Pakistan and India. A major nuclear exchange will be an extinction level event. Okay? And I'm not talking about one bomb or two bombs or three bombs. I'm talking about 10, 20. If they did that, or we did it, or it happened in the Middle East, yeah, that would be an extinction level event. But the chances of that happen, I hope, are few. I don't know if I want to live through an extinction level event. I think I would rather have a nuclear bomb drop on my head. We live about 6 miles from the munition storage for the United States, and one of them anyway. And, you know, it's got a target on it. You know it does. And so we get to go first. We don't have to worry about a nuclear exchange. So I wouldn't prep for that. I do not prep for a nuclear exchange. I do not prep for an asteroid event. Okay? I prep for sickness, for those kinds of things. The small things, a power outage, a grid down situation that might last 2 or 3 months, that kind of thing. That's what I prep for. I don't prep for a nuclear exchange or something that could be really infinitesimal. The chances of the volcano going off in Montana, for example, at Yellowstone, the chances of that volcano going off are really slim. So I don't prep for that. I prep for the other things. Now, my preps will work for that. They'll work for an asteroid impact if it doesn't hit us on the head. But I don't put up 25 years worth of food. And we'll get to that here in just a second. Okay, let's look at the next one. The next way that prepping becomes frivolous is when you neglect basic needs in order to prep. You can spend all of your resources, all of your extra resources, prepping, when in reality, you'd be a lot better off to spend those resources on improving your health, okay? Maintaining your home, maintaining your property, okay? People will neglect everything, thinking that this great thing is going to happen, and they're going to take their bug out bag and head for the mountains. Let me tell you, I'm too old to hit the bug out bag, okay? I'm prepping in place. I'm staying in place. So I have food and water, extra water. I have enough food to last a year and a half. Just after the harvest, I have enough food to last a year and a half. By the time we get to spring and I plant and get to the next harvest, I'll have probably 6 months worth of food. Okay? So it's one of those things that I don't neglect working on my house. I do the house repairs. I keep those up to date. I prepare for my old age. You know, we made a bathroom on the first floor of this house so that it would be wheelchair accessible. I've got multiple sclerosis, so I didn't know what would be needed. Chris was using it right now. So we don't know what the next chapter of life brings. That's the kind of things that I prep for. But if you neglect the basic things, I've heard people say, well, I don't need to do that because the Lord's coming back before that happens. A lot of those people have a hard time when the Lord don't come back before they die. Okay? Don't think that this thing or that thing is going to save you from what you need to prepare for. Prepare, but use common sense. You know, you have to take care of your daily activities. You have to take care of your daily life. You have to take care of your health, your family's health, those kinds of things. Nothing's more important than taking care of your family's health. You can think, well, I'm prepping for this asteroid and I've got 25 years worth of food saved. They won't eat it. It's nasty. Have you ever ate that stuff? Okay? We put up food that we will eat. We put up the same kind of food that we eat every day. We eat our preps every day. Okay? So, if you put up stuff like that, when does that stop? Does it become hoarding? Okay? Excessive. The next one is excessive hoarding. People will hoard up excessive amounts of food. They'll get these boxes, says 25 years worth of food, good for 25 years, and they'll have boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of that stuff. If you've never ate it before, you won't eat it. I'm sure that if we were without food for a year and we had that 25-year food, we might be glad we had it. But to be honest, that stuff tastes like cardboard. Most of it tastes like crap. And they hoard it up. They spend vital resources that they could be using now to get themselves out of debt. Debt's your greatest enemy. That should be your number one first prep. Get out of debt. That's your number one enemy. Everything else, store up a month's worth of food. But number one, get out of debt. Okay? Get out of debt. That's the number one advice I could give anybody. Anything else, if you're buying all this food and all this other stuff and you're putting it on your credit card and you're buying all this stuff and you're storing it in your basement and you've got guns and ammo and you've got all this stored to the point that it's stacked to the roof, you're not a prepper. You're a hoarder. Okay? You're hoarding. Don't be a hoarder. You might have a mental problem. You might need to see somebody. Okay? There comes a point when prepping becomes hoarding. And it's when you're excessively storing up stuff for an event that is highly unlikely to happen, and you're using up vital family resources in order to do that, you've got a problem. Finally, the last most frivolous thing you can do as a prepper is follow unsound advice. Now, let's be realistic. There are people out there who have devoted their life to becoming experts. And experts will tell you what they think is going to happen. Now, it's their opinion. But the truth is, their opinion is worth more than yours. I know, you hate to hear that. But their opinion is worth more than yours. They've spent a lifetime studying the thing on which they're commenting about. As a physicist, I'm going to tell you that the chance of a meteor strike in our lifetime is almost none. It could happen, okay? 1 in a billion, 1 in 250 billion chance that it could happen. But a major meteor strike is 101 in 4 billion, okay? Chance of it happening. So, yeah, I've studied that. So I don't prep for a meteor strike. Yes, I've studied nuclear energy. I'm a physicist. So, yeah, I don't prep for a nuclear exchange. I hope it hits me on the head. Because you don't want to live through a nuclear winter. Just saying. So, if you base your prepping on some conspiracy theory, very few conspiracy theories ever get proved as right. Okay? I have a thing about corporations. I have a bias about corporations. And there are millions of conspiracy theories out there about corporations and the corporate takeover of America and this and that. And I have those leanings. But I don't let that influence the way I prepare. Because thinking something and knowing something are two different animals. Okay? Thinking a certain way and knowing exactly how it really is are two different animals. So, following advice of your cousins, sisters, brothers, uncle is not always good. Okay? And there are all kinds of that on the internet. Alright? There are all kinds of that on the internet. You got to look at your sources. I don't always trust the news. I watch Fox sometimes. I watch CNN sometimes, MSNBC. I watch DW News out of Germany. I watch Al Jazeera. I watch R from Russia. I watch news from all of these sources, the BBC. And then I form an opinion about what's going on. You can't trust a single source because they all have bias. They all have bias. Okay, I could say that this one leans that way and the other one leans the other way, but mostly they lean toward the money. None of the news agencies are going to go up against their advertisers. You don't bite the hand that feeds you. So I know that. I know that. It's not that I think it, I know it. So I don't base all of my information off of that. I like to look at scientific studies. I like to decide how I'm going to prep based on the most likely event that might happen. So, even toward the end of life, is prepping while you're on hospice, is that frivolous? And the answer is no. Well, hospice says that you're going to die in 6 months. So, in the next 6 months, or you should. The doctors think you're going to die in the next 6 months. They're always guessing too. I knew people that that were put on hospice said they were going to die in 6 months that were still alive in 10 years. But that's few and far between. But anyhow, prepping doesn't become frivolous even if you're on hospice, because you could still have other things go on. One of the number one preps, number one, is life insurance. You should have life insurance so that you take care of your family if you croak out. You should have got it when you were young. You young folks that are watching this, go get life insurance. That's when it's cheapest. Okay, get life insurance and maintain it. I have life insurance on me, so if I die, my kids or Crystal is going to do okay. Crystal has life insurance on her, so we'll do okay if she dies before me. Okay, or the kids will do okay if she dies. So that's one of the things you got to do. There are a whole lot of things about prepping that are not frivolous. Okay, but if you devote too much time into prepping based on some conspiracy theory that you read on the internet, you need to step back and think about what you're doing. There are common sense things that preppers need to look at every day. Be certain to put some comments down in the bottom. What do you think is frivolous in prepping? Some people think that prepping all around is just frivolous. Okay, I don't think that, but I use a common sense method of prepping, which is more like a Boy Scout method of be prepared. So now, if you like this stuff, this homesteading, do-it-yourself kind of thing, be certain to come on out to the channel and subscribe. We do this homesteading stuff every week, sometimes 1, sometimes 5 videos. Just depends on what's going on in the homestead that week. Now, this winter, we've only been putting on 1 or 2. So, because that's the way it is on the homestead in the winter, it's just not a busy time. Okay, so now, it's time for me to get on to the next thing. Love you all.